see you, Julie. Let me just
you.
introduce you a little bit to our audience. So my name is Elizabeth Segran. I am the author of a new book called The Rocket Years: How Your 20s Launch the Rest of Your Life. But I'm also a senior staff writer at Fast Company magazine, where I cover fashion and retail. And in that capacity, I have had the pleasure of getting to know Julie, who has spent her entire career in the world, deeply immersed in the world of retail, with a particular focus on multi-brand platforms. So she's most recently worked at Stitch Fix and in senior roles at Stitch Fix, Sephora, Nordstrom, Urban Outfitters, all of these brands that we're so familiar with that curate products from different brands. But recently, over the last 2 years, she's decided to do something entirely new. And she's launched this app called The Yes. And I recommend that all of you go out and look at this app and download it, because it's kind of hard to describe unless you've sort of used it. And so I had the pleasure of spending a weekend using it, and I got these really adorable Edie Parker earrings on the site. But why don't you just start by talking us through what The Yes is, because you kind of have to be there, right, to really experience it.
Yeah. So I've spent my career, as you said, in online retail and e-commerce, and I am obsessed with the shopping experience online. And so, over the last 20 years, I continue to think about what's next and how to make it better. And I would say The Yes is the culmination of.
Oh, Julie, we can't hear you.
There seems to be a technical problem, but I think it's from her end. So we'll just wait a minute. While she comes back, there she is. I was going to ask you about your book, but here we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no. Oh, so you were walking through.
So, could you hear anything? I'm so sorry. No. Okay. So what I said was that I have spent my whole career in e-commerce. And so for the last 20 years, I've been obsessed with the online shopping experience, and I'm always thinking about how to make it better. And The Yes is really the culmination of my 20 years working in the space and thinking about the consumer experience, and thinking about how technology can help it and what other things really matter. So I am, a super user of all of these shopping sites and apps. And I think that it's really helpful to be both the executive and the super user, because you are obsessing over sort of every detail. And stepping back, The Yes is really the culmination of all my various experiences. And it's really a modern way to shop, given sort of what exists today, which is a lot of technology that wasn't accessible in the past 20 years. So our goal is to take the work out of shopping and to bring back the fun. And with tech that creates a customized digital store around each user. So we carry over 150 brands, from high-end Prada, Rosie Sulin, to sort of more contemporary fashion, Frame and Sandro, to Madewell, Everlane, and Levi's. So it's a really broad range because we shop high-low. And it also is a concept that brings together brands that aren't usually in one place. So for example, we have wholesale brands, we have specialty brands like Aritzia, who is not sold anywhere else other than their stores today and their own site, and Everlane and Laline, some DTC brands. So it's, we are just thinking about what does the consumer want, not kind of what's the back end structure of the industry. And so a user comes on and answers a fun but important set of questions that are dynamic. And then basically each user has a home feed, a search tab, and a yes tab. And the home feed is unique to them. So it is basically taking into account the things that we've learned about you, and then it continues to evolve based on the things we learn about the user. And it is a combination of brands and trends and themes and categories that are relevant. And then in search, we basically don't edit out things, we re-rank things. And so everyone has their own personal rank for every search, whether it's for something specific like white sandals or it's broad like sundress. What you see, Liz, and what I see are, going to be different based on what's available in our size, and the size is already recommended because we understand whether you are a 6 who wears an 8 or a 6 who wears a 4, and how this brand runs. And we sort of combine those data points to give you an already defaulted recommended size. And then based on, all the other aspects of style and preferences. And then everything's one click. So we use Apple Pay or your credit card. And while the model is drop shipped, so the product is sent from the brand's warehouse in their packaging, we manage the communication with the customer. So we let you know where it is. And if there are any questions or problems, we take care of it.
Yeah. I mean, so when I was using it, what was interesting about it was that, usually you're exploring based on a particular brand. Even the layout of department stores tends to be based on, the price point of products. They're categorized in this kind of arbitrary way, right? And so what was really cool about this was that you were able to sort of see what you were interested in all in one place. And that was a very different experience. And also it's kind of a fun interface, right? You've sort of gamified it so that you're clicking yes when you like something, and then that will change, the algorithm. One interesting thing that I've been thinking about, especially during this time, is the representation of Black brands and Black designers. And this is something that I've been sort of tracking for a couple of years and has been very salient, obviously, over the last week. But, a lot of, in some ways, the Yes is really an alternative to the department store, the traditional department store, Barney's, Nordstrom, these stores where that effectively served as gatekeepers for what brands would sort of make it, right? You would see a runway show, there would be a breakout designer. The clothes would then be available at one of these department stores that would basically be responsible for keeping a brand alive or giving it, like a place to sell product, right? Is there a way that this app and this model can be more inclusive, perhaps, to designers of color or people that we're less familiar with than other forms, other forms of retail that do this? Yeah,
I mean, the barrier to be a brand on our app is very low. It's basically just, who do we think has a real fashion point of view? And so it doesn't matter if you're a big brand or a small brand, a startup brand, you don't have a lot of funding behind you. And so that's what makes it really nice. The integration process that we've built you have to have a website. But other than that, we basically do all the technical work. And, we're also promoting the brands through things like you can follow them on Instagram, and you can sign up directly for their emails through our platform. So we're really excited. We have a bunch of small brands. We have some Black owned brands, and we definitely, the silver lining of this event is it has made everyone far more aware and proactive around sort of this topic of supporting Black businesses. So the team had already basically done some work to find, just more brands with different, I'd say diverse founders to be able to invite in that we thought were interesting. So the truth is there's no difference from, a tiny brand like Lemlem is a brand we have on that's an Ethiopian founder who's amazing and beautiful, versus a huge brand like a Prada. They both can participate equally in the platform, and based on, each shopper's preferences, they're going to see the brands that are stylistically relevant for them. So
yeah, and interesting. I mean, with the old model, there were these, because the brand, the retailer was buying, was ordering essentially, like placing an order from the brand. So they had to be able to scale up and have a certain amount of inventory and so on. And so all of those barriers have sort of fallen away, right? With the
exactly.
They're controlling the inventory, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's an interesting new approach, but I think many of audience members are interested in kind of the larger reason for the Yes, which is that Department stores are currently being battered by the events, the economic, essentially like the lockdowns, but the broader economic trends. But that's been sort of happening for a long time. This is kind of like the final nail in the coffin. Having spent your career in this world and thinking a lot about department stores in particular, what's going on? Like, what do you think has been going on, and what went wrong, and how is this kind of an antidote to all of that?
Yeah. I think that if you look at the history of department stores, which were really the first big retailers in this multi-branded world, it's been really interesting. I was thinking about this the other day because, in the sort of early part of the 20th century, as department stores started to come to life, the competition was much smaller. And if you read the history of some of the department stores, Nordstrom and Neiman Marcus, they were the sort of penultimate of shopping, and they dominated. And then ever since that time, competition has and the landscape has changed so dramatically. And if you think about the last probably 30 years or so, I was a shopper in the 80s and I spent my weekends in the mall, and the competition for my time was much less. So I was either deciding between the roller rink or the mall for my Saturday. And
the plot of Pretty in Pink or one of these movies.
Yes.
Like
But it was true. I lived in, upstate New York, and, it really was, where you went and how you spent your time. And I look at my 17-year-old daughter's life and all the differences. And I think I'd sort of say there, a couple of big specific things that have happened that have been really interesting. The first is kind of the rise of fast fashion. If I, as a teenager, had H&M, I would have been in heaven. I had Limited, which was the best thing ever, and then the department stores. And it was just much more limited, in truth. And so with Zara and H&M and Forever 21, I think that, and specialty had started before them, but the growth of specialty also, put some real competition in, out there for the department stores. And then so did Sephora, actually. I was at Sephora for 8 years, and every single year, the actual beauty market barely grew. And some years it actually retracted, but Sephora's share grew. And so the impact of Sephora on the department stores, ground floor was enormous. And it really ate into sort of their, the big part of kind of their business, which was beauty. The second thing that happened is online. And so everyone moved, to start to shop online. And that has been a very steady trend and increase. And so that's not the only reason, but that has certainly been a big reason. And what you find when you're shopping online is if you need something specific, trying to go and find it in a department store, it's like, maybe it'll be there, maybe it won't. But online, you can see all the options. So, it made shopping even more of a, sport or entertainment, less of a kind of, I need to get this very specific thing. I would say the third thing is honestly, the competition in the last 10 to 20 years of attention via social media and the internet. And so, people are spending their time so much more online, whatever it is that they're doing, that they're not bored and looking for activities to do the way we were in the 80s. And then I think also just the other forms of entertainment and experiences that have come up are just another competition for time, eating out, and, the millennial generation being known for experiences over retail. So I think that all of those things were a big factor. And then also, ultimately, I don't think physical experience has kept up with growing expectations around service and around innovation. And so, you walk into, a Macy's, and it's unpleasant. And, even when you walk into a Nordstrom where, things are better organized, it's hard to find someone to help you because just realistically, like, you can only keep it, stocked with people at a certain ratio. And as traffic really does go down, that's just an absolute fact, and will continue to go down as there are other ways to shop. It's had an enormous impact on it.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting because it seemed like part of the problem was that they were just so weighed down with infrastructure and costs that made it really hard for them to evolve as quickly, right? And then as all of that was happening, there were all of these, over the last decade, direct-to-consumer startups that popped up with entirely different models. Many of them began online. And then when they did eventually go into brick and mortar, they had this, this concept in mind that, people could shop online. So in order to bring them into the store, it had to be a different experience. It couldn't just be transactional. And so, I think an important question here is, all of these department stores tried to go online. And as I was working on the story and I was thinking about department stores, I was scanning through lots of, I don't actually shop on department store websites. I think that's pretty telling. And so I had to do some research about that, and they all seemed like they were pretty similar, right? Like they were all, they were undifferentiated. What do you think, as somebody who spent time, managing multi-brand platforms online, with Sephora and Nordstrom and other brands, what is the, what have they done wrong with their online experience?
It's interesting because actually their online businesses are the biggest in fashion. So if you look at the size of Nordstrom.com or Neiman's.com, they're both in the multi-billions. And, if you look at the online only competitors, the Farfetch, the Net-a-Porter, the Shopbop, they're actually, the Revolve, they're all much smaller. So Nordstrom.com and Neiman's.com are somewhere between 3 and 6 times larger in terms of revenue than those experiences. But what's happened is exactly what you said. So they have a large infrastructure. They are trying to manage for multi-channels, and there has been a limit to innovation. And so, I would say it's not that they don't kind of dominate today, because they do. They're just not, first of all, it's not enough to offset the shrink in their sort of store business, which they're very obviously distracted by having to manage. But they also have big legacy technology systems. I helped build Nordstrom, and I know, how complex their infrastructure is. And so when you look kind of in the future, you don't see them as the source of growth and innovation in the way some of these other players are. And so, I think it really is a combination of the fact that the organization is very distracted. It's such, as someone who's worked for a omni-channel retailer, and then multi-channel retailer, and then also has worked for online only. It's such a gift in an online only world to be able to put all of your resources and all of your thinking and all of your capital into innovating there, as opposed to, needing to kind of have a very spread out mindset. And so it's interesting because when I was starting this business, what I thought about was, I want to run the best retailer. That's my personal goal. 2 is, who is that today? And 3 is, what is that going to look like in the future? And I realized that what it was going to look like was very different than what exists. And starting from scratch, literally scratch, would be a better way to get there than, taking on a $4 billion business and trying to innovate and continue to make it relevant for the future.
Yeah, and to that point, as I was learning about your app, it's fascinating how you basically had to build your own technology so that you could recommend products that people would actually want, and also you had all of this machine learning and AI that basically helped figure out what to recommend someone, because all of the legacy systems are being used pretty much by everyone. It's the same technology, and so we're all getting the same recommendations. So it's pretty interesting that it seems like in order to move forward and stand out, you really sort of have to build stuff from scratch. And I think to that point, this brings us to our last question, which is that we've looked a little bit at all of the department stores of the past and how they tried to evolve. What does what does shopping on a multi-brand platform in the future look like to you? If you can just not think about what exists today and what is happening in the future, right? If you could imagine what that's going to look like, what does that look like to you?
It looks like it's like a one-to-one store, right? So it's, if you know about me and you learn about me as I shop. I mean, that's the key, is that we all spend so much time on these websites and they don't know anything more about us today than they did 10 years ago when we started shopping. And so the problem is that it's a catalog online that is yours to have to go find. And so the whole point, I think, of the future and what AI and sort of building these kind of neural networks that basically understand one user's behavior and can build a model around them. It is figuring out what to show you that is sort of meeting your needs and bringing you new ideas, continuing to expand your horizons, bringing contextually the pieces of information that you might need to see to help you. So what are your friends interested in? Can people sort of give you input on it seamlessly and easily? What are people who you inspire to, are your fashion inspirations wearing, and how do you get those ideas all kind of in one place where you don't have to kind of use these jerry-rigged systems or go out? It's sort of all brought to you in a really logical and helpful way, so that it's, if you think about it, it's like, there've been lots of variations on personal shoppers, both in stores and online, but it's the idea that someone says, I can learn everything about you and I can help show you things that are relevant to you, and whatever pieces of information are relevant to you in the world and specific to, product and brands, we can surface for you in a really easy way.
Yeah, and I think that really, I think, one crucial part of all of this is just kind of what we just said before, which is like doing away with pre-existing models. So it seems like a lot of the change in retail has been incremental. So, an app will come up, but it's kind of like a small improvement on other apps that exist. And, same with department stores and, and like, even like what, the big transformation was like in these pop-ups and like immersive retail. But then after that, everybody sort of started to do that and just sort of like modify what was working. And I think that, what's interesting about your app is that it's sort of like doing away, it's like kind of rethinking a lot of different things, including, for instance, the high-low component. So like when I was scrolling through the app, I was like interested in chunky earrings, and there was like Prada earrings, and then there was Edie Parker earrings, and then there were much less expensive earrings. I mean, these are things that didn't really exist in the past. Like I think that there were like institutional reasons why you wouldn't want to put brands of different price points together, but that's how people actually shop, right? And things like about like sizing and all of that. I mean, it's just like kind of throwing out the rule book, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what you need to do to make legitimate change as opposed to incremental change, as you sort of said.
Totally. And to wrap up, tell us really quickly about like what you have in store. I mean, you just launched the Yes. But when we were talking previously, you mentioned that you have a big pipeline of things that you're hoping to bring to the app. So what's on your wish list?
Yeah. So we just added a sharing feature. So basically you can invite friends into the app, and you can see what they're liking and they can see what you're liking. That makes it super fun. We have a lot more around kind of the idea of how you bring in other people in a way that's really helpful for you. Right now we're women's only and we're iOS only. So obviously expanding that, and we're also US only. So lots of room for growth across all of that. And we have 150 brands, and we will have many more in the future. So we're really excited about that too. So those are some of the, changes in the near term.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody downloads the app and gives it a whirl. And thank you so much for joining us today in this conversation. This is really fun. Thanks, Julie. It was nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Thank you both so much. Congratulations on your book. Congratulations on your new company and app. I'm super excited to actually take some time and read the book as well as download the app, which I haven't had a chance to, but it sounds amazing. So I appreciate both of you being a part of this with us. And thank you so much, and stay safe.
All right, bye.
Bye.